During the Pleistocene epoch, the Eurasian wild asses were widespread across Europe. As such, in this part, we will go over what predators that these Eurasian wild asses may have had during the Pleistocene. The cave lion was the largest apex predator during the Pleistocene as far as big cats go. On average, it grew to the size of the largest modern lions and was one of the top predators of Pleistocene Europe. Cave art shows that it was a very social animal and also had prides like modern lions. And since they hunted species such as the wild horse, it is somewhat likely that they hunted Eurasian wild asses of any kind that they could get. Next is the cave leopard. Now, we know that modern leopards often hunt medium to occasionally large-sized prey in the wild. And we know that emir leopards, at least, live in similar conditions to the cave leopard. This suggests that the cave leopard, suited to the Pleistocene environment of Europe, could have been an apex predator of wild asses. Now we move on to the giant cheetah, a predator found in Pleistocene Europe at this time and a possible predator. Giant cheetahs are an extinct species that indeed grew larger than modern cheetahs and may have been fast as well. Their speed and their increased size allowed them to hunt larger prey, and the wild ass may have been hunted by these cheetahs. It is unknown if Asiatic cheetahs lived in the Caucasus at this time, but if they did, they could have also been potential predators. A species of puma or cougar lived in Europe at this time and may have preyed on wild asses as well. Puma pardoides was a predator of prey such as the European antelope and possibly wild horses, and maybe the wild ass. In Pleistocene Europe, even larger forms of the gray wolves may have preyed on wild asses. Cave wolves were one of the larger known subspecies and were capable of hunting larger prey, but they were not the biggest. That honor goes to the incredible Canis lupus maximus, one of the biggest wolves ever discovered. These wolves may have been part of a more widespread lineage of large, robust wolves known as the megafaunal wolves. Megafaunal wolves were a lineage of robust, powerfully built wolves, potentially rivaling even the dire wolves in size. Megafaunal wolves were adapted for hunting large prey like bison, and would have likely hunted and eaten wild-ass species as well. The more gracile gray wolves that still live today also lived alongside these wolves. And after the largest prey died off, the megafaunal wolves went extinct while the gracile wolves live on today. A bone-crushing predator lived in this area in time, and that was the cave hyena. The cave hyena, or Crocuta spolea, could grow much larger than today's spotted hyenas, and is likely that they eat wild asses as well. Because today's spotted hyena kills up to 95% of the animals they eat, it is probable that the much larger cave hyena would have no problem hunting wild-ass species during the Pleistocene. But they still could have scavenged. Either by predation or scavenging, a larger form of the striped hyena living in Europe could have potentially eaten wild asses. If wild asses lived in Europe a few thousand years before the time of the oldest subfossils or hydrontines, then the giant short-faced hyena Pacu Crocuta could have been a potential predator or scavenger as well. The wolf-like Chasmoporphetes, also found in North America, lived in Eurasia at one point, but it was already extinct when the European wild asses came around, and would not be a predator of them. Also seemingly too late is the European jaguar, or Pantherogum brasiliensis, as the time gap between it and the European wild ass is relatively small, meaning that if it lived just a bit later it could have hunted them. Unfortunately for the early humans Homo heidelbergensis, they did have to deal with European jaguars, and with their game. I can't find any information about the Caspian tiger during the Pleistocene, but if Ice Age Caspian tigers were indeed present in the Caucasus, then they would likely prey on Eurasian wild asses of any kind. Another giant predator that was likely eating wild asses was Homotherium, a relative of Smilodon. These long-legged scimitar-toothed cats inhabited Eurasia as recently as 12,000 years ago, and were able to take down prey as large as a bison, and it is likely that they hunted European wild asses along with other herbivores. Now we move on to the utterly enormous steppe brown bear. They towered over other brown bears, growing bigger than some cave bears, and at times it is considered a distinct species in its own right. And of course smaller brown bears, who still live today, could have also preyed on wild asses. Their giant cousins were also potential predators. Now on to the cave bears. Cave bears were actually herbivorous, almost to panda-like degrees, and would not be predators. And that's just some of the animals that may or may not have eaten the Eurasian wild ass during the Pleistocene epoch. But last and definitely not least, us. During the Pleistocene, multiple waves of ancient humans moved into Eurasia, starting with the Dmancy hominins in what is now Georgia. Why these early migrants moved into Eurasia is debated, but some point to climatic changes in the continents. Besides the Dmancy hominins, next is a hominin that may be a later form of the same taxon, Homo erectus. Typically considered as the first to use fire, they were among the earliest migrants into Pleistocene Eurasia. Homo erectus and the Dmancy hominins were the first in a long line of hominins that would inhabit Eurasia during the Pleistocene. Homo erectus is sometimes considered the first hominin to hunt, so they may have hunted Eurasian wild asses. Next is Homo heidelbergensis, or the early humans who were dealing with the European jaguars from earlier. Interestingly, several spears have been attributed to Homo heidelbergensis, and they were stone-tipped, meaning that Homo heidelbergensis was very well capable of hunting various species. They are believed to be the ancestors of both Neanderthals and modern humans, Homo sapiens. They could have been potential hunters of the Eurasian wild ass, as there was a roughly 50,000 year coexistence to allow this. And of course there were the Neanderthals, the robust humans. Once thought to be stupid, primitive cavemen, it is now known that they were fairly intelligent as a species. Because their ancestors, Homo heidelbergensis, used spears, and the spears were stone-tipped, this makes it at least somewhat likely that Neanderthals used spears to hunt various species in the wild, such as the Eurasian wild ass. Especially since technology, including spears, had likely advanced after Homo heidelbergensis. And, because of the admixture between Homo sapien societies and Neanderthal societies, it is possible that the techniques from immigrating Homo sapiens may have been used by Neanderthals to hunt species such as Eurasian wild asses. In a later part, we will go further into the relationship between Homo sapiens specifically and the wild asses. And the reintroductions. That's gonna be a rod. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.